Back with you on the Newsfeed PM. Thanks for staying on. Let's continue with that conversation on the United States President Donald Trump's and his executive order he issued against South Africa. Trump recently signing those executive orders, which cuts or at least suspends foreign aid to South Africa and offers resettlement of Afrikaners as victims of racial discrimination. Joined now by Kallie Kriel, the CEO of AfriForum. Good to have you, Kallie. Thank you very much for your time. Did you lobby the US president, particularly around this issue of the Expropriation Act?
Good afternoon to you, sir. No, we did not lobby the president or the US with regard to this. We did, however, when there was an effort to change the South African Constitution in 2018, we lobbied because we said then, as we still say now, would be disloyal to the people of South Africa to sit and do nothing, because we've seen in Zimbabwe how normal people suffer if there's disrespect. So then we had a good campaign. Fortunately, the ANC was not successful in changing the Constitution. And then we saw them, and also Minister Lamola said, well, we couldn't change the Constitution. Now we're just going to use our simple majority to be able to expropriate without compensation. And this brought us to this point. So I think people now that want to blame AfriForum, do they really think the US does not follow what is going on in the country? And, you know, it's an old strategy. Blame those or try and get a scapegoat if you don't want to take responsibility for your own actions. And President Ramaphosa and the ANC should take full responsibility for this crisis we are in at the moment.
So where do you think this misinformation is coming from, that South Africa is confiscating land from Afrikaners?
No, I think that the US must ask what there is indeed, and what we've stated in public, that there are land grabs at the moment, unfortunately. We have radical parties calling for land grabs, even councillors of the ANC that have actually asked people to occupy land, but it's not government doing it. But unfortunately, we see government not acting. In many cases, the police simply refuse to act. And that is throughout our 177 neighborhood watches across the country has to struggle with this. But if the President Trump thinks it's large-scale expropriation at the moment, then, of course, it means the government's communication is terrible. It's definitely nothing we said, but we shouldn't now. I think people are focusing on that rather than the real problem. The real problem is the Expropriation Act will allow expropriation without compensation, or as they say, no compensation. So that is the problem. Yeah. The problem is the president signed that. The problem is the president signed the Bella Act, targeting the Afrikaans-speaking community, targeting the future of existence. And those are the worst things a government can do. So the president is responsible, and they should not now try and blame AfriForum.
So I take, for example, Agri-SA, the organized agriculture in the country. They say there is no seizure of land, there's no confiscation of land. In fact, they believe that the Section 25 is still pretty much a buffer as far as the Constitution is concerned in how expropriation is conducted in the country, saying that Section 25 requires that compensation be just and equitable, ensuring a fair balance between public interest and the rights of affected property owners. So the Constitution of the country is still pretty much protecting property rights, and there would never be an instant where expropriation will be done willy-nilly.
Yes, but that is exactly the point we're also making, to say this Expropriation Act is not in line with the Constitution. The president knew that. We wrote to him in April last year saying, please, this is in contravention of the Constitution. If international investors hear the concept expropriation with no compensation or without compensation, then you're going to harm the image of the country. And you know what? The president did not even answer us. Yeah. Then in December, early December, his own Minister of Public Works gave him a legal opinion that this act is not in line with the Constitution. So I cannot imagine, like, people say, well, okay, it seems fine. Let's get an act that is unconstitutional because the Constitution will protect us. Now you're going to put, the government gets taxpayers' money. Yeah. Now you will have to have landowners taking them to court because it's not in line with the Constitution. I think any organization that takes the interests of the country and also the members into account would not say this act is fine, because it isn't. And those of you that are watching that think we are lying, go onto the internet, read the act, go to section 12.3, and you will see exactly what the problem is.
But shouldn't we let the courts in the country, the Constitutional Court, for example, to speak to that regarding the constitutionality of it?
Well, that is unfortunately what we'll have to do now. The fact is, the responsibility of the president of this country is, before he signs an act, he must make sure it is constitutional. He did not do that. He harmed our international image in the process. Yeah. But we will definitely go to court. We tried to evade this crisis. That is why we engaged the president. That is why we have warned thoroughly about the consequences. Yeah. And now we are reaping the terrible fruits of this irresponsible behavior.
Why would you say an Expropriation Act, a domestic act, would harm our international reputation when internationally expropriation in the public interest is an acceptable principle?
Yes, of course. That's also our position. There's no problem to have an Expropriation Act. Every country has it. There's one huge difference. The only countries that have expropriation with no compensation or without compensation is places like Zimbabwe, places like Venezuela. And I think those that are not worried are disloyal to this country. And we are happy, even if there are people making false allegations against us. We are the people that are taking the interests of this country. We're taking it to heart. The economy of this country is important because even social grants are paid from taxes that companies pay. So if you're going to harm the economy by disrespecting property rights, you would see in the end, even the poorest of the poor also suffer. So we believe that those true patriots like ourselves should fight this in the interest of the country and its people.
I believe there's some, according to the Chamber of Business, some 10,000 applications that would have gone through their website to try and find information around moving or at least taking the offer to be resettled in the United States. So what do you say to those 10,000 who are pursuing that route?
Well, the fact is, we believe there should be a future in this country. I will stay in this country. My family will. We are not Europeans. The Afrikaner community did not come here as Afrikaners. The Afrikaner people was formed here from, of course, Dutch and German people and so, but you can't be an Afrikaner elsewhere. But also to other people, rather than going away, take a stand. And that is exactly what AfriForum is doing, because we say we are here to stay. We want to contribute to this country. But to make sure that we are able to do that, we must make sure that this country works. And then we have to protect the country against those, like the president and the ANC, that put their party interests above the interests of normal people in this country.
What's your position as you meet the representative of the White House? You're saying punish the ANC and not the rest of South Africans.
Well, we hope that there can be that this can be solved. It is in nobody's interest that the country is punished. Well, that's also not our first agenda point, to see anybody punished. But if the ANC or the US is determined to punish anybody, we will say, well, then rather punish those that are responsible and not the ordinary people of this country, because they have not done this. It's the leadership of the ANC that are responsible.
Kallie, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. CEO of AfriForum there. That's Kallie Kriel.